Welcome everybody to another edition of Fins Up Podcast. I'm your host Chad Martin along with JC Martin, and we are depressed and saddened to talk about the first part of this show because it sucks that Ole Miss lost for the third year straight to the Razorbacks. And man, it's just a game they should not have lost, but once again, it was mediocre gameplay. It looked like to me they were lethargic the entire game. There were underthrown passes, overthrown passes. It just looked like the effort wasn't what it should have been, which is odd since how they scored 30 points.
Right.
But still, it was just
the big thing that stood out to me was, again, time of possession.
Oh my God, it was brutal.
Arkansas held the ball for 2/3 of the game.
40 minutes.
Right, and as opposed to 19 and some change for Ole Miss.
That's right.
But between that, and because the turnovers were the same, I think Arkansas rushed the ball like 20 times more than Ole Miss did, but Ole Miss actually had more yards per carry, so actually Ole Miss had the more effective running game. But Chad Kelly couldn't get anything going on deeper passes.
Yeah.
I mean, the accuracy just wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he ended up rushing for 84 yards, but it was the passing where it was not a good game. It just wasn't, not by Ole Miss's standards, and just the fact that they could have won this game, should have won this game going away. Man, and
they were more effective on third downs, but they couldn't consistently move the chains.
Yeah, I mean, and you just look at that, it's just hard to believe when you look at these stats that Ole Miss lost this game. Well, I say that, but then you look at total yards, and I hate looking at it, I hate talking about it, but it is what it is.
I mean, you look at these stats, and they're really similar. I mean, the only thing that really stares out glaringly is that time of possession, but still, it's not like Ole Miss got blown out. I mean, they only lost by a few points, but
yeah, exactly.
It's a tough one to swallow, just because I hate Brett Bielema, and actually I have no reason to hate Brett Bielema. It's just of the fact that he always looks confused. Every time the camera's on him on the sidelines, he has this face going on.
Maybe he's just surprised that they keep winning.
I think
That's
that maybe
the only thing I can think
he's
of.
adapting into some mysticism in those moments where he looks like he has that 1,000-yard stare, and that mysticism is divining some kind of information into him for him to help his team execute these game plans.
It's something, but I mean,
he has Hugh Freeze's number right now,
and it is. I mean, it's pretty much that dang easy. They're winning. Ole Miss is not, and now Ole Miss drops to number 23 in the country. They worked themselves back up to number 12, and because of this game, they're now down to 23. And
they're lucky to be at 23.
Yes.
Honestly, they should be out of the top 25. They're the only 3-loss team in the top 25.
Yeah, exactly. And if they don't go down to LSU this weekend and put the hammer down, then they will be out of the top 25 pretty handily by the time Saturday comes to a close. So, and we'll get into that. We're going to break down LSU. Is there anything else you want to talk about in this Arkansas game? Anything that really stood out to you watching this game?
Like I said, the thing that stood out to me was Chad, just his inability to connect on the deeper passes, even though you have the tallest receiving core in the SEC, or in college football for that matter. I mean, this university, Ole Miss, they've developed the nickname of wide receiver U.
Yeah, exactly.
If Penn State used to be linebacker U, Miami there for a period of time, you could have considered them running back U. Well, Ole Miss is wide receiver U, and for whatever reason, Chad Kelly couldn't connect with these great wide receivers that they have.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot of. He is going to have to focus and buckle down. If they're going to beat LSU, who is fired up right now and playing some ball, then they're going to have to really put the hammer down and hit these receivers in stride. And when they're open, instead of overshooting them and undershooting them, it was ugly.
I had a lot of confidence in this Ole Miss team at the beginning of the year. Then you have the Florida State game, which hurts, but you know that you can play with them.
Exactly.
Of course, they dismantled Wofford. They go into the Alabama game. You go up on Alabama again, just like you go to Florida State. You're like, there's no way this is going to happen again. It happens again.
Yep.
But you still think, hey, we were in that game. From start to finish, we were in that game. We could have beaten the best team in all of college football. And then, the last few games really just haven't been all that. Of course, they blew Georgia out.
Yeah.
But the win over Memphis wasn't as decisive as would have made me comfortable.
Exactly.
Like, they won by a good margin, but that's because they really ran away with it at the end. That didn't have me comfortable. Then, of course, you lose another tight game, back-to-back years, tight games to Arkansas. Once in Oxford, once in Fayetteville, after getting blown out 2 years ago in Fayetteville.
Yeah, their defense just has not looked good at all.
Right.
And you have to have some defense of some kind.
Of course, we know about all the injuries that have gone on in the secondary and the linebacker core. Hugh Freeze this week has actually come out and he's made a coaching change for his linebacking coaches.
Yes, he did.
So, we'll see if that helps, but man, they better be ready for Leonard Fournette come Saturday, because Leonard Fournette he's going to come and he's going to run with a vengeance.
They got two of their offensive line starters coming back, and we're going to get into that. We're going to get into LSU. Before we do, Ole Miss men's golf. They're ranked number 25, and Braden Thornberry. They won the AutoTrader.com Collegiate Classic this weekend. Thornberry fired a bogey-free final round. He scored 6 under 66 in that final round. Ole Miss broke a school and tournament records at, they hit 6,706 yards on a par 72 Berkeley Hills Country Club. So, they were rolling in this. They posted the second lowest tournament score in team history with a score of 33 under par, 831. So, congratulations to you guys. Women's golf, the ladies, they shot a season low 285 to finish 7th in Denver. They have... the Ole Miss women's golf team recorded its best round of the season. They went 3 under 285 to finish 7th with a season low 877, and that was at the Ron Moore Women's Intercollegiate Tournament this weekend. Women's soccer, the Rebels beat Texas A&M 2-1. Ole Miss is going to 4-4 in SEC play, and they had to come from behind to beat Texas A&M, but they did it, pulling it out. Good job to you ladies. And it's hard for me to get excited. I'm still thinking about that Arkansas game, and it's hard for me to get on track here thinking about that.
And that's kind of, I got off topic earlier, but that's kind of where I was going when I was talking about, the Florida State game and the Alabama game.
Yeah.
You have these moments, but we didn't lose confidence in them, but for whatever reason, this loss to Arkansas was just absolutely demoralizing.
It really was. It was terrible.
Because even with the injuries to the defense, that Arkansas is dealing with injuries too. At this point in the season, everyone's having injuries. But I still felt in my heart Ole Miss was the better team.
I did too.
Top to bottom. But then you got to lose, and after the beginning of the season, I really would have expected Ole Miss to go down to Baton Rouge and beat up this Tigers team, but since they named Ed Orgeron head coach, they've really righted that ship.
Yeah, he's an excitable coach anyway, so...
So, this is going to be one of those where it's hard to predict a win for Ole Miss.
Yeah, it really is, and it's... Like you'll see right here, and just breaking down LSU... That kickoff is another night game for Ole Miss. They've had a lot of those here lately.
You don't want, I love night games, but the one night game you never want, and that's if you're any team in the entire country.
Exactly.
You never want a night game in Death Valley on a Saturday night.
That's right. And LSU is already a 5.5 point favorite in this game.
And we may see that grow by the end of the week.
Exactly. So, we talked about Leonard Fournette coming back. You had left guard Will Clapp is coming back. Right tackle Toby Weathersby's coming back. So they're going to be pretty full strength on that O-line.
Right. Basically, the key to beating LSU, without a doubt, is stopping Leonard Fournette. Because if you can stop Leonard Fournette, LSU can't throw the ball.
Yeah.
And it's the exact opposite for Ole Miss. LSU's key is they have to stop Chad Kelly. Because if they can shut down Chad Kelly and these wide receivers, they know Ole Miss can't run the ball effectively.
Exactly.
So, it's going to be interesting to see how these two defenses, how they do their thing and shutting down their offensive counterparts. But yeah, I mean, the smart money is on LSU this week.
So what do you think Ole Miss is going to have to do to actually beat the offensively to move the football? And I think it's always going to come down to the wide receivers. We talked about them being wide right U. But I mean, what are they going to have to do to be able to move it effectively, drive after drive?
Well, if Ole Miss has to try to run the ball.
Yeah.
They have to. They have to try with Hakeem Judd or Eugene Brasley or whoever it might be. But if that's not working, then you've got to work some bubble screens or some short drag routes, anything that you can use with short passes to utilize as a version of your run game. If you can't get those short yards, using your running backs, use your wide receivers to get them. But basically, you're going to have to matriculate the ball up and down the field, and you have to eat clock. Because one thing that we know about LSU teams year in, year out is they're big and they're physical.
Yes, they are.
And since they're so big, they've got to exert a lot of energy to keep that up, especially with the high-powered offense like Ole Miss has. So the longer that LSU defense is on the field, the more likely your chances to win this game.
So if you have one key player to the game, if you're picking one key player from Ole Miss, one from LSU, who's your LSU key player?
LSU key player is Leonard Fournette. He's arguably one of the best players in all of college football. So, I mean, it's hard to pick against him, especially with him coming back. He might be a little banged up and whatnot, but he's still phenomenal. He can run over you, around you, and through you. So, it's hard to pick against LSU's Leonard Fournette, especially since, he was a favorite for the Heisman coming into the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
And conversely, for Ole Miss, it's got to be Chad Kelly. Because this team goes, this Chad goes. I've said that several times on the show.
He's going to have to be accurate.
He's got to be accurate. He's got to be decisive. He cannot hold the ball all day long.
No, and he's got to be smart with the ball, too. I mean, you just can't fling it down there. That happened last week with Arkansas. You're driving, and then you just throw a bad interception. Because sometimes you have to take a sack. Just take the sack and live to play another down.
And another thing Chad doesn't do well is just get rid of the ball. Like, it's okay to throw an incompletion. Exactly. I will take an incompletion over a sack any day. I will take an incompletion over an interception any day. But if you have to have a mental clock, this is something that we always hear on every sports show. Yeah, as a quarterback, you have to have that mental clock. There's only a certain amount of time that you can realistically expect to hold the ball safely in the pocket. You think about Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, those guys get rid of the ball in 3 seconds or less. Usually a lot less. About 2.5 seconds before they get rid of the ball. And that's something that Chad's got to work on. We saw in the Alabama game where he took the sack in the shadow of his own end zone that ended up being fumbled and recovered for a touchdown by Alabama. He probably held the ball back there for 3, 4, 5 seconds before he got hit.
Well, yeah.
If you're number 1 and number 2, and if you have the time to go to number 3, if they're not there, just throw it out of bounds.
Just get rid of it.
In their area. Make sure it's in their area so it's not just blatant intentional grounding.
Yeah, you're out of the pocket, whatever it takes, but get over there and get rid of that ball and be smart with the ball. Because you look at, and we flip it back, I go back to the defense, because when you're looking at time of possession, it's 40 minutes for Arkansas, which is just mind-blowing.
Right. The defense can't get off the field.
And they're having these long, sustained drives. Your defense is getting worn out. Your offense is on the field for 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. You can't win with that formula. Unless your offense is scoring a touchdown every time they hold the ball, then you cannot win with that kind of disparity in your time of possession. And Ole Miss isn't doing that. They are not putting up the points enough to allow them to have that big of a disparity in their time of possession. You cannot win football games like that. If they try to do that against LSU, then it is going to be very ugly, because that means they're getting run over completely by Leonard Fournette and that offensive line. They're just going to get beat up. And I think Ole Miss has the front four to do it. The linebacking core, and I think that's one of the reasons.
That's a question mark.
It's a huge question mark. That's one of the reasons I think Hugh made that change. With coaching, something's got to give there, because the middle of that defense is not good at all.
And then you think about the secondary and just all the injuries, and they're giving up serious plays. I mean, Julius has played a lot better than I think anyone expected for him. But at the end of the day, this secondary is not what many people were expecting. Of course, the injury to Ken Webster was depleting, but you know, Tony Bridges and Tony Connor, like you guys run that secondary. Those two have to be there. They have to be cracking skulls. You know, if you got to play them in the box, then, you know, by all means do it. Whatever you got to do to stop Leonard Fournette, because I don't believe in that passing offense for LSU.
Yeah, I don't either.
They have wide receivers that can make plays, but I don't think their quarterback can make the throws.
Exactly. Now, Ole Miss does have one thing on their side, and that is that Arden Key decided he felt the need to talk trash about Ole Miss and put a little chip on Ole Miss's shoulders this week. I think they would have been better served of just shutting up and not saying anything at all to Ole Miss. But here's what he said. He tweeted this out. He says this, feels like I'm supposed to 3 sacks against Ole Miss. Don't see Laramie Tunsil anymore. We'll have to catch him later. So, you know, a little bit braggadocious.
Well, it may be braggadocious, but he's got a point.
He has a big point.
This offensive line has not played all that well all season.
Nope.
Chad Kelly's gotten hit a lot. We've had numerous plays that have gotten stopped in the backfield. I mean, of course, last year that offensive line was great once Laramie came back from his suspension. And, of course, you can look at the years before when, Laramie was on the field. He was a huge difference maker. Protected Bo Wallace's blind side, Chad Kelly's blind side. Well, now that blind side is a little more susceptible. Of course, you're trying to develop true freshman Greg Little, who was, I believe, the #1 offensive tackle in the country last year.
That's right. He'll be great.
He'll be fine, but coming into college, he's not where Laramie already was.
Exactly.
And of course, Laramie wasn't polished by any means, but he was hands down one of the top high school football players in the country before he came into college. But I think Laramie's also just a special breed.
That's right.
Of football player. But Greg Little will be fine in a few years, but a few years is not this Saturday night in Baton Rouge.
We're going to need it severely to win this football game. Now, Chad Kelly did say, talking about LSU, it's going to come down to execution. Trying not to force things. They're going to be a good team. They always have been. And he also says, we're playing to win every game. I hate to lose, and so do the other guys in the locker room. And I know that quote right there stems from a lot of the fans, and myself included, after watching that tragedy unfold Saturday. It was like they're just not playing like they want to be there. And, that's what it looked like to a lot of us, I think. I think even Marquise Haynes came out afterwards saying, people outside this locker room don't know the kind of effort we're putting forth. And that may be true from an insider's viewpoint, but from an outsider's viewpoint, what it looks like is that you're not putting forth any effort.
Right. It looks like they're not playing with heart.
Yeah.
They know that they're talented.
Exactly.
And they're trying to just rely on that talent when that talent doesn't necessarily work, because when you're playing other teams in the SEC, those teams are immensely talented too.
Yes, they are.
So it comes down to who wants it more, who's going to fight for it more, who's going to scratch and claw for it. And Saturday night, it was Arkansas.
Yeah, and Hugh Freeze came out and said, we've got to rally and respond. It is what our university and our people deserve. If we're going to compete with LSU on Saturday night, our receivers are going to have to play well, and they know that. And that goes back to what we were talking about. This team is going to have to realize that because people are telling you how good your receivers are and how good your offense is, you can never let up. It's always foot on throat, and you have to play 60 and prove that you're worth the hype that everybody's talking about.
And I've kind of railed on Chad for this podcast about his inability to connect with the receivers in Fayetteville. But, there were several times where the receivers just flat out let Chad down.
Yes, they did do that too.
There were a number of drop passes, and it didn't matter who it was, whether it was Stringfellow, Adebayo, Van Jefferson dropped a wide open pass.
Oh my God, yeah.
So, like Coach Freeze said, wide receivers and Chad Kelly, that unit right there, that is going to single-handedly win this game for Ole Miss.
Because the fact is,
if they do their job.
And that's exactly it. Because if they do, they're one of the toughest groups to stop.
Exactly.
In all of college football, they've got all the talent in the world. They just have to show that talent and produce that talent on Saturdays when it counts the most. If they'll do that against LSU, I think they'll win. What's your score?
It's Baton Rouge. You're going to have a fired up crowd. One of the loudest crowds in all of college football. I think not only are Ole Miss fans demoralized right now, I think this team's demoralized. So I'm going to say... And, LSU has not allowed any team to score more than 21 points on them all season.
So the defense...
All season.
Is good.
They're great. So I'm going to say LSU 27, Ole Miss 20.
I'm going just opposite. I'm going 27-24 Ole Miss. A Wonderlic field goal at the end wins it. And I think if they play solid and stay in there that they can pull it out. But what really scares me about that, though, and saying all that, is if that Ole Miss offense is only putting up 27 points, then that means their defense is going to be out there for a long, long time, especially with the way they run their offense, and that could be very bad news for Ole Miss. We hope not. We hope Ole Miss comes out of this. Well, I know we'll be rooting for them. We'll be watching. Hope you guys are too. If you like the podcast, follow us, Fins Up Podcast. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter. You can follow us on our Patreon page at sportsclashradio.com. Well, I'm sorry, it's going to be patreon.com/sportsclash. So do that. Follow us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. Let us know what you think. If you watch this on YouTube, check the links below. Leave your comments in the link below. What do you feel? How do you feel your Rebels are going to do this weekend? Do you feel they're going to be able to step up and play football with LSU, or do you think this skid is going to continue? We hope to hear from you soon. We'll check you out. Hotty toddy. Fins up.